Ah, Well, that was some good fighting Sparta work.
Victory!
Yes, for the
is
Spartans.
ours.
For the Spartans, and I didn't get any blood on my toga. As
Me
you can
neither. Still
Yeah.
fresh and pink.
Right. Okay. So on to video number two, or performance number two, which means that we are going to talk about the camping. The wonderful, wonderful camp of Camp Joy, as it was called.
It was not very joyful, I tell you. I don't mean to rip on this group at all in any way. I love them all very much as people, but
we're looking at as them as performers.
As performers, we've got to be honest. It wasn't joyful, not because I was scared in any form of way, but because everyone was just screaming at nothing, and all I experienced during that was being led somewhere, being lost, can't find a chair, and then people tickling and breathing my neck, which for me was just nice. And then Katie with the baby screaming, which was a bit like, whoa now, that's a bit odd. And then it ended, and I was like, well, what just happened?
Well,
but what do you say?
I have to be like, some of that I do agree with, but the beginning they did create a total piece of theatre.
That was
to
true.
Start off. Their start for me was the best start out of all of the performances we've had, because what they did is they took us outside and went, "Welcome to Camp Joy," where basically the first game we're going to play is we're going to tie you up and blindfold you, meaning that they're instantly taking away our first piece of sensory equipment with our body, which is our sight. Which means that we are now instantly, again, more vulnerable as an audience. We become scared. We don't know what's going to happen. Is this a joyful place? Is this just a juxtaposition?
Well,
good word.
All of us from the start knew it wasn't going to be a joyful place.
Exactly, it was going to be a joyful place.
Straight away.
Because we are very creative characters and we can see these things ahead. Psychic.
Ooh.
But basically, for me, I felt that, yes, you are right on the fact that it was just too much going on. There was too much screaming going on. We weren't all experiencing the same thing at the same time. Probably that would have made it more successful in that sort of way. They did use the concepts of total theatre mainly on sound, not necessarily some of it touch, not at all taste, but I don't think anybody really used taste.
No one used taste.
Smell wasn't in there either, though.
The only thing that I could really smell at all is the wet leaves, and that's because...
Oh, did they have wet leaves on the floor?
On the table, on the chairs. That was another... I feel like I'm the bad cop and you're the good cop.
No, I'll agree with you on the chairs. They didn't feel like...
if you're in the camp, why are you sitting on chairs? I felt like we should have sat on the floor with the wet leaves and stuff on the floor, because that would have been so much nicer. I felt like they did that because they wanted to be nice to us, but in sensory performance, if it's a horrible camp and a screaming baby... woman,
actually, the woman screaming in the middle would have been a lot more intense.
Because we would have been at her level.
We would have been at her level, if not lower.
But we've got to, obviously, it wasn't 100% their fault in planning it, because they had sounds of woodlands and all of that going on.
But
it's just because of the screaming, and they didn't think about timing really in terms of they should have done. Although obviously it's a performance that needed more people, so everyone could have been touched at the same time, because it was a bit like over there and then over there. Took your time there.
Yeah, sorry. I was thinking of dead.
But I mean,
Greek soldiers.
As a dead Greek soldiers.
Yes, I've just been
I've
fighting.
got that on the brain as well.
Yes.
It's very true.
Carry on.
But as a whole, I like I've said, I think the performance was weak in places, but if it had been more carefully planned, then I think it would have been a really good performance. But it just needed a bit more of a storyline, really. But I mean, what do you just
I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't agree on the sort of storyline thing, but because it had a storyline.
It had a good storyline. It's just because it didn't really go anywhere.
It would have been more if it was more intense in terms of it was, again, like you said, with the timing, with the precision.
That's what it needed. It needed more silence.
More silence.
Because and more pauses, because I felt there was a good storyline there. It just needed to grow.
Exactly.
Like a little plant. It didn't have time to develop. Really, it was pre-puberty.
Pre-puberty.
Essentially, it got its maybe its first little spot, but it didn't get anywhere else.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. But I thought, again, if there wasn't as much noise, it would have been a good performance.
I agree. I do agree with that completely.
They, as a group, they look like they worked hard on it.
They did.
It just could have enhanced it more. It was just an idea that went a bit wrong.
So
it's like trial and error.
The two things I would say is, one, the chairs, and two, well, not two things, main things. One, the chairs, and 2, the fact that they could have planned it so there wasn't so much screaming at different points. And the other things are things like adding taste and smell, but most of the groups didn't use taste or smell.
Exactly.
So we're off to fight another Greek battle at Thermopylae. 300 of us.
For Sparta!
For Sparta.
Tonight we dine in hell! For Sparta!